Well, welcome to OnPoint Live right here from the Manhattan Beach Studios. Hi, everybody. I'm Vince Ferragamo, former Los Angeles Rams quarterback, and alongside of me is 20-year NFL legend, Hall of Famer Jackie Slater. And Jackie, we got to recap what happened in Week 14 of the NFL, talk a little bit about college football. But before we do that, I got a what in the world?
What in the world?
Just happened this weekend, this past weekend. Jackie,
I know what you're going to say.
Do you know what I mean? Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking
Major
about.
League Baseball just signed the highest lucrative contract in the history of the sport.
In the history of the game.
$700 million for
10 years.
For Shohei Ohtani, okay? Went from the Angels. He's now a Los Angeles Dodger. Jackie, West Coast, we have three of the top paid baseball players in all of baseball. You got Mookie Betts, the Dodgers, okay? You got Mike Trout, and now Shohei Ohtani. So what in the world? I mean, come on, Jackie.
When is it going to stop?
Money.
When is it ever going to stop, Vince? I mean, I wondered as I've watched him the last few years, I wondered what was going to happen to him down with the Angels and everything. This guy is one of the top hitters in the game, and then he comes in and no one can get a hit off of him. So it's like they're paying him $35 million to hit and $35 million to pitch. And then on top of that, Vince, the guy's had two surgeries. He's had a Tommy John and what do you call
elbow,
that?
UCL.
A UCL surgery.
Collateral ligament.
Yeah, I think that's
damage.
what Brock Purdy had up at the 49ers, and he's come back from that quite well. So,
but he had a good doctor doing it now, Neil Albatross.
Oh, Neil Albatross is a great doctor. He's a great doctor. But, you know, when I look at the situation with Shohei Ohtani, I'm thinking this is probably as big a business decision by the Dodger organization as there ever has been made in pro baseball. And that's primarily because they know that along with Shohei Ohtani and what they're going to get from him on the mound and what they're going to get from him hitting, they're also going to get a fan base following him that is probably quite huge. It's going to be quite a few.
How much are those tickets going to cost?
I don't know how is it going to affect the ticket prices, but you know the gate receipts are going to go up. I mean, they are going to get more fans. This guy is much beloved, and you know, baseball is it's America's sport. Right. Everybody can play baseball if you can't do anything else. Might not be able to play football, but you can play baseball. Yeah. And people love the game, and they love to see great players. And I mean, just think, man, they've been talking about this guy. No one has even come close to Babe Ruth. And I never heard Babe Ruth's name mentioned so many times over the last, as I have heard it mentioned over the last 2 years with Shohei Ohtani and his exploits. So I'm excited for the area. I'm looking forward to watching him in the Dodger blue.
Yeah, because he can play two different positions. Jackie, he can pitch and he can hit. So he almost led the major leagues in home runs last year, and so till he was hurt. And then he's pitching lights out. So, and the Dodgers love their pitchers. So, but when you have a pitcher and a hitter both, let's hope he can bounce back from that surgery and become really effective.
They're saying right now that he probably won't pitch right away, but he'll be able to hit.
Right.
So, I mean, I think people will be pleased with that.
Well, the Dodgers always making an effort to be the best. You know, that's just what it is. I grew up in Los Angeles my entire life, Jackie, and I've always been a big Dodger fan. So, I mean, it's still the same. Even with Tommy Lasorda, I know Tommy's looking down on it right now and smiling because he said, we got a good player with this team. So.
You know, I had a feeling that he was going to go to the Dodgers.
Yeah,
I just had that feeling.
Well, I thought he would stay on the West Coast as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, the Blue Jays really wanted him bad too. A lot of teams want him.
Yes.
But, you know, I think when it all boils down, said and done, you want to play on the West Coast. You want to play for Los Angeles Dodgers, okay?
Right.
In L.A. Well, we have to talk. Now that we're talking Los Angeles, we have to talk about our local teams here. And, you know, the Rams lost a tough game, Jackie. They lost to Baltimore Ravens, you know, in overtime on a walk-off punt return touchdown in overtime, Jack.
So, Tylan Wallace, who was the backup punt returner, by the way.
Yeah.
The
backup. He wasn't even the number one guy.
The number one guy was not able to play.
Yeah. But, you know, talking about the Rams, Jack, they were in this game the entire game. But the way it started out, they ran the ball 7 consecutive runs. They were running it right down the field, through the Ravens. Even defense is a really tough defense.
6 yards a pop, I believe they were.
Yeah, and then they get down inside the red zone, Jackie. They threw 3 consecutive passes, incomplete. They had to settle for a field goal. what sense? Why would if something's working that good, why wouldn't you keep doing it, punching it right in the end zone?
I agree 100, and that's my bias being an offensive lineman. When we're pushing people off the ball, we know that when you look at that game as the game goes along, the guys that we're knocking off the ball and making to play hard in the run game, their pass rush abilities are gonna be depleted as the game goes along. So a lot of people would look at that and say that was not very good coaching by Coach McVay, but by making that decision once you got in the red zone. I'm not gonna question McVay and his thoughts there, because this guy's proven to me time and time again that he knows exactly what he's trying to get accomplished. He has purpose to just about everything he does, it seems, Vince.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a young, energetic, bright guy, and if that's a flaw, I'm going to forgive him for it, because, and that's easy. That's hard for me to say, because I'd rather run it 9 straight times than to run it 7 and throw it 2. But that was the decision he made, and he usually makes good decisions.
Right, and he's always positive, Jackie. So he's always encouraging the team, because he understands the youthfulness of his team, and it takes time to mold these players. But at the end of the game, okay, when timeouts are critical, okay, when you can't get a play into your quarterback, the quarterback or the head coach, instead of calling a timeout, you have to call a play.
So
that timeout was essential to Rams to win this game during regulation.
Right.
They didn't have to go to overtime.
So you would think that he and Matthew Stafford would have been more closely aligned on the same page.
They should have been.
As to what they would do in a situation like that.
I think so, for sure. That's a critical situation. They had to settle for a field goal, Jackie, to send the game in overtime, and then they lost it in overtime. But, they had a couple great drives there, but hey, things come up. You just got to call the play. You're the quarterback, call the play and just make it happen. And that timeout really resulted in the Baltimore Ravens being able to call timeout. They were able to defend the Rams on the 16 seconds left to go. They had no choice but to throw it in the end zone.
Right.
Okay, they couldn't run the ball. If they had had the timeout, they had the threat of a run or pass situation, which makes it a little more difficult for a defense to defend. But let's talk about Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken, what he's been able to accomplish with this Ravens team. And take nothing away from the Rams. The Rams played a good game, okay, because this is one of the top teams in the NFL. They're 10-3. They have the best record in football right now. Could be the top number seed in the AFC.
Right.
Jackie, they, as I always said, watching this team, it's very difficult to defend an offense like that. And the best thing about what I saw Lamar do is, since Todd's been there, they have resurrected the drop back pass, and they have taught him. They have controlled his maneuverability in the pocket to stay put and to make certain throws. And that's the reason why they were able to come from behind, because they didn't have to run the football. They could throw the ball and be very effective, and they went right down the field, and they put the game in overtime. And his 2-point conversion, which is the best play this far in the season that I've seen all year, and people won't mention it, but his escapability and his throw was an accurate pass to get the 2-point play, which provided that team to at least get into the overtime to win the game.
Yes, it was, because for a moment there you thought he was going to take off and try to make it on his legs on that play.
But he couldn't, and he knew where the receiver was.
He knew where he was, and he pulled up and he threw a dart right over there at him. We're going to have a conversation a little bit later about the MVP, and I know how you feel about that. But one of the things that you have to give Todd Monken credit for is that he was brought there to get Lamar playing better in the pocket. And I think we're both seeing that. But the other thing that he did not overlook in his efforts to get that done with their franchise player was to develop a rushing attack where people had to play the run at the line and deal with those big guys at the line of scrimmage. I think that was the thing that jumped out. I mean, they led the number 1 rushing team in all of pro football. And then you got the most athletic, most improved young quarterback in the game from the pocket.
Yes.
That's a deadly combination. And I know now, Vince, why you always say to me over and over and over, this is the most difficult team in the NFL to defend.
And for him to step up into the pocket and was immune to the Aaron Donald rush. They had 2, 3 guys on him sometimes, Jackie, and he was always provided a lane to step up into the pocket, which a quarterback needs to have in the National Football League.
Right, right.
And he was able to complete a lot of passes that way. And to me, that was remarkable to see that, because I didn't see that at all in his first few years with the team.
Yeah, he would just
and now he can.
He would just take off and make things happen.
Right.
Which he still, how many yards did he have rushing for?
He had 70 yards. Jack, he contributed to 85% of the total offense that they generated. He had over 300 yards passing,
300 yards passing.
70 yards rushing. Okay, Jackie, that's phenomenal. But that just doesn't happen, okay?
Now let's move on to this next topic of conversation, the MVP race.
All right. Wait, we should talk about the Chargers.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about those. We can't forget about the Chargers. What happened to the Chargers, Jackie?
Well,
come on now.
I mean, first of all, Vince,
they lose to the Broncos, 24-7.
I love their head coach. Just some of the decisions that I've seen lately, has been a little bit cavalier, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think they were 0-13 or something like that on third. 0-12. 0-12 on third downs.
No, couldn't convert first down.
Couldn't convert. Now they come up on fourth down, Vince.
Yeah.
And I think 6 times
they
went for it on fourth down. The first 2 times they could have walked away with 2 field goals. I just don't know if you want to consistently roll the dice with your team. You got to take points in the NFL. It's hard to get in the red zone. It's hard to score. You got to take those points sometimes and then live to fight again for the touchdown. And I just think that maybe that Brandon is relying on his ability to motivate the team to go for it a little bit harder on fourth down. And I think he's relying on that too much.
Well, I can see the calculated chance for that, the probability of success for that too. Sometimes they look at all these analytics about the conversion rates. But when you only can convert 1 out of 6 tries on fourth down, but if you're 0 for 12 on third down, you're always presented with a fourth down decision. Okay, you need to convert on third down. Okay, so that way you don't have many fourth and short yardage. But they don't have a tush push like Philadelphia does, where they're 95%. Sure rate that they're going to get their first down.
They're like 42%.
40, something like that.
That's not a good percentage
to
be going for on fourth down.
But the other thing, too, Jackie, is the Chargers gave up 6 sacks. Now, when you talk about sacks, you're usually referring to the offensive line, but no.
The big guys.
3 of those sacks came from the secondary, a corner, safety, a safety blitz. Those are handled, for the people that don't know football, they're handled by the quarterback, okay? When you see that happen, you have to be able to do something with the football, and that's a lot of times it's a side adjustment. You have to be on the right page with the receiver. They have to break off their route.
Right.
Okay? Unless it's a zone blitz, then you're pretty much assured that's going to be picked up. And 2 of those blitzes came from linebackers, only 1 from a defensive end. So that tells me there's something wrong with the way the quarterbacks are interpreting the fronts and how the pass protect. That's the first thing for a quarterback, is to know your pass protection. Who's hot, who's not. Do I have maximum protection?
Who's going to be blocked and
exactly.
who's not going to be blocked.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I don't want to blame Kellen Moore for that, because I thought he was a pretty solid coordinator when he was with the Cowboys. But it just seems like some of the little pieces. If you could look at Dallas right now. Dak Prescott it's almost like he's improved tremendously
from where he was.
And
he was good in the beginning.
From where he was a year ago. And then if you look at the quarterback here with the Chargers,
Justin Herbert,
it seems like he's digressing.
Yes.
It's just
he come up with another injury, Jackie. He busted his other finger on his throwing hand.
On his throwing hand now. So
how
long is he going to be out with that?
Well, it's a good thing he didn't rupture his extensor hood like I did on my throwing finger, because that will really depress you big time, because you can't throw like you used to. He just broke his finger. So he can heal from that and be in good shape. So thank God that was the only part of his injury. But he's going to probably be out the rest of the season, so it doesn't bode well for the Chargers. So, moving forward, and their Achilles heel has always been stopping the run. They gave up 106 yards to the Denver Broncos, and Sean Payton's really got that team playing, and now they're vying for the AFC West with the Chargers, with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
Tale of two.
Yeah.
Two stories right there.
So,
all right,
talking about the Rams, we have to mention, okay, this Puka Nacua is doing great, but Cooper Kupp had a great game on Sunday, and he is almost now in the conversation, Jackie, of one of the best prolific receivers in Rams history.
Absolutely.
But we have a lot of guys to consider.
Yeah, we got a lot of guys to consider. Now Cooper Kupp had 8 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown this past week. And then this is the second week back coming from that hamstring that he had. And then, of course, he had that high ankle surgery. Cooper Kupp is a special receiver. He's a special person, special man. He's up for the Walter Payton Man. He's the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Rams this year. But he just consistently shows me a keen mental approach to playing the game from the wide receiver spot. Now, when you start talking about some of the Ram great wide receivers and comparing him to those guys, I think it's going to take a little bit more time to totally rewrite the history books. But, when you start talking about great Ram receiver, you got to think there was Elroy Crazy Legs Hurst. Yeah. I mean, very few people remember how good this guy was, one of the best and most dangerous receivers in all of pro football. But then if you just think recently, you got Henry Ellert. Henry Ellert out of Fresno State, John Robinson drafted him in the second round the year he drafted Eric Dickerson. He played 16 years in the NFL. Yeah. One of the best pure route runners that I've ever seen.
Oh, yes.
The top guy in that class got to be Isaac Bruce, Hall of Famer Isaac Bruce. Nobody runs a better route than him. He's more, he was just very special. I was fortunate to play with him a couple of years. And then to watch Torrey Holt, the 6th overall pick in the draft the year that he came in, just a dynamic receiver, just a matter of time before he's in the Hall of Fame. Now, the numbers that Cooper Kupp ultimately ends up putting up is probably going to surpass most of these guys because of the
rules and the way we throw the football, wide open offenses today.
But if Cooper Kupp is around a few more years, which it looks like he will be, he's going to rewrite the history books for the Rams, in my opinion.
The all-time leading receivers for Los Angeles Rams in history, Jackie, it'd be remiss not to mention a guy like Flipper Anderson, Jack Snow, these guys. But, they had long careers with the Rams. And if Cooper Kupp, as you say, continues at that pace, he could supersede
all
of those numbers. Yeah. And, he is truly remarkable receiver.
Just by nature of the fact that
he's so much like He's got so much of all the innate ability that Flipper Anderson had, that Isaac Bruce had, and when you see Henry Allard run routes, Henry could separate from receivers like no other.
Yes.
His break off the cut was so fast and electric that there's so much movement involved. He was sometimes difficult to throw to because coming out of a break.
Right.
Because he would be in a different position altogether.
Right.
Cooper Kupp has that ability, but he has a little bit more intuitiveness about seeing it before the break and knowing where to go. Mm-hmm. And when he's on the same page as Matt Stafford, say, for example, then it's a combination that's very difficult to stop.
I'm going to interject this, Vince. One of the things that I've always noticed, even from a young age, is that kids who play a lot of different sports, they take different skills from each sport, and the sport that they usually settle on playing, they apply skills from other sports to that sport that they love. And, Henry Ellert was a world-class triple jumper and just didn't qualify on the ship to go and compete in the Olympics somehow. But he had the ability to explode off his right foot just as much as he did his left, and it didn't faze him at all. He was just a dynamic athlete that way.
It's interesting you say multiple sports, Jackie, but it's very interesting because we interviewed Ivory Sully a couple weeks back, and he was a top-class tennis player.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And he could play tennis. So other sports actually help you develop skills that you can apply to whatever you do.
Right.
And these guys can really make a big difference.
Yeah.
And, when Ivory came here, he had to make a name for himself because he was undrafted.
Right.
So, when you have that ability, hey, things can happen.
He did a fantastic job. Well, let's get on over, Vince. I wanted to get to this a little bit earlier. I almost jumped the gun, but we got an MVP race going on.
Oh, yeah, we do.
We got a bunch of guys the season is winding down. We got a bunch of guys that are doing some fantastic things. Interesting thing, Vince, if you look at the list of names that I have here, you have Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Tua Tagovailoa, Lamar Jackson. Now, the thing that you notice right away about the first 6 names is that they are all
quarterbacks.
All
Who
quarterbacks.
else? Who else?
But you know, since 2000, that's who has won. But since 2000, four running backs have won that award also. 4 running backs. Now, this year, which is unusual, we have a wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, down there at the Dolphins, Vince. This guy is on a pace to have a 2,000-yard receiving season. 2,000 yards receiving is quite a number of yards.
Hey,
receiving.
Guys are lucky to have 1,000 yards.
I know.
He's doubling that number.
2,000 yards receiving. And so my question to you is he in the equation? Do we talk about him as an MVP?
For sure. I would have to put Tyreek in that conversation, Jackie, because of the way he gets into his routes. He's so fast. They call him the cheetah, right? He's so darn fast that does he make the quarterback look good, or does the quarterback make the receiver look good? I think it's the receiver making the quarterback look good.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Because I can throw a go route in 2 seconds to a guy like Tyreek, and he can go get it, and that's 50 to 55 yards down the field. And that opens up, that is a vertical threat that will open up any defense. And it opens up a lot of channels underneath. Those intermediate routes that can be wide open, and they exploit that area as well. He gets to those areas, plus the quick screen, plus the swing routes, plus all of his motion. I mean, he's dynamic, and he's a definite weapon. And I'm sure Patrick Mahomes at this point would have loved to keep him on the team. But,
yes.
He went to the free agent market. And, Tua is loving him. So they're getting along great there. And why wouldn't you? Because he's a great receiver. But he would be in the conversation. But you know who my number 1 guy is?
Yes, I do. It's the quarterback that plays with the Baltimore Ravens.
That is correct.
Now tell me why, Vince. Why are you so convinced? For the last couple of years, Lamar Jackson's injuries at the end of the season has foiled the Ravens' opportunities to get into the playoffs and do well there.
Yes.
His injuries. But it seems now that he's moving a little bit less than he has in the past. Why do you think he's an MVP candidate?
Well, I have to agree. And to be honest, when he first came into the league, watching his skills, he was a good quarterback, but I wasn't high, and I didn't think he was one of the top quarterbacks in the league because of his inability to sit in the pocket and to read defenses and throw the ball down the field. Now, with Todd Monken, and what they have been able to do in Baltimore, okay, John Harbaugh, they've been able to instruct him to say, this is part of our game, okay? Now he has that innate ability to be productive, not only running the football and all the different mannerisms you can do. You can do the RPOs, you can do a slide, you can do a dash, you can do a roll, run the ball, direct runs, but he can stay in the pocket, step up, and deliver the ball where it needs to be thrown. And when I've seen that, then I became a firm believer that he now is the complete quarterback.
So him being a pocket passer was the last step that he needed to make in your mind to make him that very unique quarterback.
That's exactly right. And when you're that type of quarterback, then you begin to grab the excitement of all your teammates, and Zay Flowers, and Odell Beckham, and Mark Andrews. These guys are loving this offense now because now it opens up everybody. Everybody becomes important. And not to say that Lamar Jackson doesn't account for 85% of the offense. Yes, he does. But now it's even more open and more difficult to defend because as a defensive player, you don't know what to do. What are you going to stop? The running game, they're the best running team in football. Okay, throwing the ball, start looking at what their production and throwing. They threw over 300 yards last weekend. That's productive. Okay, he throws for a couple touchdowns. He throws for he doesn't run the ball in for a 2-point conversion. They throw it.
Throw it in.
That's not easy to do, Jackie.
Right.
All right.
Well, one of the things that I did notice in that game against the Rams the other day, Aaron Donald was getting triple teamed a couple of times.
He's the only player He hasn't been sacked by Aaron Donald.
I know. But when he wasn't getting triple team, Aaron was in the pocket applying pressure. And every time he broke into that pocket, I noticed that the quarterback, Lamar, he just didn't take off. He stayed in the pocket and moved around in there and moved away from where he thought Aaron was.
Right.
And, he didn't abandon the pocket. I was really surprised to see that, how committed he was to staying there.
I saw a similar play where they spun. Aaron had him by the grip by one hand. He did a 360 spin. Aaron spun.
Yes.
And he still had him by one arm, and he spun again. They were like dancing.
He had him by the jersey.
They were like dancing together in the pocket.
He had him by the jersey.
He wanted to get him down.
Yes.
But where was his attention? Focused down the field. And he still threw the ball. Before he was brought to the ground, they thought it was a fumble. Wasn't a fumble. His knees didn't hit the ground. He threw the ball. Arm was coming forward. He's intelligent, where people would say that offense doesn't require you to think of everything. Yes, it does.
It does.
Todd Munkins brought that part of this offense,
yes,
okay?
Definitely.
And you have to pay attention, and you have to study. It's like anything else. Mm-hmm. And that's what's made him a great quarterback. And that's why I think he's the MVP.
Yeah. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't do this. It's just something about the blue and gold that runs through my veins. Yeah. But when you think about the Rams, I mean, they play Cleveland. They play these teams are already in these
playoff teams.
These are playoff teams.
Right.
These are playoff teams. The Rams with this young roster of theirs are playing against some really good football teams, and they're playing real good football. It makes us all proud.
We thought that, though, Jackie. We knew that they were going to advance. They were going to improve as the season went on.
We did.
Because of their coaching. Mm-hmm. You talked about Raheem Morris, how well he's doing on defense. I mean, you still give up 31, 37 points to the Ravens, but the Ravens are a great team.
Great team.
Okay?
Number one rushing team.
Yeah,
in the game.
I mean, the Rams were in the game to the end.
With arguably the top candidate for the MVP at the quarterback position this year. All right, Vince. One thing I wanted to ask you, LeBron James' son, Bronny, he returned to the basketball court with USC for a game for the first time this season. Doctors cleared the 19-year-old to return to basketball 2 weeks ago after he suffered a cardiac arrest in July. And, I remember once trying to keep my son from doing something that I thought was hazardous to his health and all of that. And, fortunately, nobody listened to me because he ended up doing okay and moving forward and having a nice career and all that. But how do you feel about that? I know you didn't have any sons, Vince, but how do you feel about, how would you feel about that if you were LeBron, seeing your son healthy enough to play, but would you be reluctant to send him back out there?
It's a tough decision for a parent because you want to be protective, but you also want to be preventative as well. And you want to prevent any kind of mishap or injury. And if they play sports, there's always a chance. There's always something that could happen. But, you play the game, even in life, Jackie, you live every day to its fullest, and you never know what's going to come of it. One day we're here, the next day we're not. But, I think you can't play scared. And, that's something that, you can take away from it. Don't be afraid. Don't be weary, Don't be worrisome. Think on the positive side, I think prayer and a lot of those kind of things do come into effect, that they're important.
Yes.
For us as parents, because, we want the best for our kids. But you know what? Not at all cost. Because as long as they're productive, they're a good citizen, they're respectful. And I think that's what we need to teach more of our kids. But yes, again, if it's preventative and now Bronny is back in form and he's healthy again and he's been cleared by the medical professionals, then I think it's hard to not let a kid have his aspirations, have his own gifts, like your son, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
You were protective of Matthew. He would love football. He loved the competition. And you know something? Hey, I'm all for it. I have a grandson of my own, and I want to see him play sports. He plays all different sports, but tackle football when you're young, I'm a little questionable. I never played it.
Yeah, let him get a little.
You didn't play it.
Yeah.
So we played it when we got to high school, and that's a different story. But it's fun to watch them play. It's fun to watch them compete. Mm-hmm. You cheer for them. But hey, winning at all costs is not the answer. Okay?
Well, I'm glad you shared that with me, Vince. Cause I thought that you and I were pretty much the same, with our feelings there.
Yeah.
Now I want to jump on to a different subject, and this one is a little bit interesting because we've been seeing over the last few weeks some mistakes. We all make mistakes, some failures, some of the rules being enforced on the actual playing fields. Mm-hmm. This has been particularly bad for a couple of NFL official crews. An NFL officiating crew is under the spotlight. Brad Allen's officiating crew has had 2 missed calls in recent weeks.
Okay.
The last week it was a no call on Packers cornerback Carrington Valentine for making contact with Kansas City's wideout Marquez Valdez-Scantling prior to the ball arriving. The no call helped Green Bay win 27-19. The previous week now, the crew missed an obvious pass interference when Falcon linebacker Caden Ellis failed to turn around while defending Saints quarterback Derek Carr's pass intended for Alvin Kamara. So what can be done to fix the missed calls? Do we need to let every single play go to let it be a reviewable play? What can we do to eliminate some of that?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand why this is happening. And, missed calls, and then they're calling because at the beginning of the season, there was a gripe that, hey, you're missing all these calls. Now the officials have been instructed to call whatever they see. So there's going to be a lot of calls, maybe unnecessary calls, which is another problem. But when you're always changing the rules, when we played, Jackie, rules were different. We didn't have as many of these pass interference calls and roughing the quarterback calls, okay, that they have today. All right? Then when you change the rules like that, you can't be accurate in your assessment, in your officiating. It's hard. And now that everything is subjective and not objective, what they see is what they call. And if they don't see it, open your eyes. Why didn't you see it? Now, Patrick Mahomes had a call go against them late in the game this past weekend. All right? They were playing. They went for a touchdown, okay? But Tony was lined up offsides on the snap of the ball.
I don't know how that
and they called it back because the receivers look at the sideline referee and they say, "Hey, okay, ref, line me up. I'm okay. Is it back up a little? Okay." But that wasn't communicated to the referee,
which is the receiver's fault, I think.
The receiver owns some responsibility to that as well. So, but and I see that great plays like that makes the game entertaining. That's what we all watch it for. But they've lost 2 games in the last 2 weeks by officiating calls. The call to Valdez-Scantling, that was
clear.
Legitimately a pass interference, and they would have went down and probably scored on that drive, probably would have won the game. Last week, they would have won this game, okay, when they were called for the offsides penalty, took the touchdown back.
Right.
So I can see where the gripe is. I can see where you're missing the calls. We have to do something. I don't know what the answer is, but quit changing the rules.
Yeah. I got 2.
Maybe they have to change it to what it used to be.
Yeah. Well, I got 2 things. The first thing is don't put yourself in a position where you're hoping to get a call.
What's that called? Preventative.
Yeah.
Be preventative.
Yeah. Be preventative. The second thing is, this is the one thing that I would like to see, and I know you disagree with this, but when you throw the Hail Mary, I have seen with my own 2 eyes, when a Hail Mary pass is thrown up in the air, a receiver who's in position to get that ball caught, shoved with 2 hands by a defender in the back. And I think that should be called. I clearly think that happened to Kelsey. 2 games ago. I've seen it happen numerous times. I think that should be a reviewable play. And if someone is shoving someone who's about to catch the ball, I think they should be penalized for that.
But to the contrary, if you did call those plays, there would be a call on every Hail Mary pass. So I say, let them play it out. There's no calls. If you're pushing and shoving around, hey, best of luck. Whoever comes up with the ball is going to win. I mean, this is the way it is. Otherwise, I want the ball at the end, and I'm going to throw it. I'm going to heave it in the end zone, and I'm going to get the ball on the first 1 yard line, and I'll win the game. And I don't think the game should be decided like that. You know, the game is pretty much over anyway. It's a Hail Mary pass.
Yeah, you make a good point.
How many times you granted your wishes?
You make a good point, but I noticed how upset the young quarterback was there in Kansas City, and Andy was all upset. And then it dawned on me, you know, there's two other things that's missing from this team that a year ago maybe would have overcome. We wouldn't have even gotten to this couple of situations, and that was number one, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, and number two, Tyreek Hill, their wide receiver that's down at the Dolphins. Right. I wonder how much of a difference those two guys would have made in these last couple of contests where they failed.
Well, Eric Bieniemy's doing a good job in Washington, and I think Andy Reid's doing a remarkable job with the Chiefs. But I do think that it's a lack of playmakers for Patrick Mahomes. He won't admit it, but if they had some more talent around him, he's got Travis Kelce. But when
he doesn't have Tyreek Hill.
He doesn't have Tyreek. A lot of quarterbacks don't have him. Only one now, Tua, and that's what's making Tua so good. But, you know, it's nice to have a couple, you know, game breakers, game winners out there to go out there and make some plays, Jackie, because the quarterback, I mean, he's tough. He's one of the best there is. Won Super Bowl after Super Bowl. And like Tom Brady, I mean, but you got to have people
that can
play. That can go out and catch the ball.
That's right.
So we got to close with one real interesting topic that's going on in college sports. Now, you and I don't know. We've been a long time since we played college sports, right, Jackie?
Right.
So things are different today.
A lot different.
And we have to mention the fact that, you know, college players now have what they call a transfer portal, that they can opt. If things are not right at this school, they can opt and go to transfer to another school, and they don't lose any eligibility. When we played, you had to go to a different conference, and then you only lose 1 year of eligibility. You can redshirt. So it's much more difficult back in the day when we played.
Right.
Troy Aikman, myself, there was a lot of players that were able to do that.
Right.
But now you can transfer at no penalty, okay, and you can opt to go into the portal with an NIL prepayment settlement, like
name,
image and likeness, which now college players are getting paid for that because of what they were able to accomplish in the congressional law and judiciary antitrust laws. Okay, now they're approved. I don't like the fact that college players can receive money because college, I think, is for the student athlete, and it's beginning to disappear. And pretty soon you won't have any alumni where student athletes are alumni. You'll just have student alumni and not athletic alumni because they change from school to school. They don't play in a bowl game because they want to get drafted. Jackie, is this crazy? I mean,
I don't know the answer to this.
They can put, how do you assess this? I mean, it's hard for me to fathom that these kids are not amateurs anymore. They're professionals at the college level.
And they're stepping right out of high school, some of the best high schools around the country. And it's not just football players. It's not just basketball players. It's girls softball. It's girls volleyball. It's track and field. It's every single sport. It's like, is sport a profession in America? Once you get out of high school, that's the question that we're going to have to start dealing with. And certainly it's going to impact a lot of our traditions that we've had in this country, like, you know, the great rivalries, Ohio State and Michigan. Speaking of Ohio State, look at what's going on there with them right now. They have a wide receiver who was a junior a year ago who made $2 million, and now the name, image, and likeness opportunities that are presenting themselves are challenging him to consider coming back to Ohio State for an additional year as opposed to turning pro. And if he does, the name, image, and likeness people who are going to sign him are going to get him the amount of money that he would make as a rookie high-round draft choice. That is just mind-boggling to me when you think about it, Vince. I mean, he was a junior in college this past year, and he brought home $2 million, and he played in 10 games. I don't know where that's going to go, but it just, to me, sounds a little bit unhealthy.
Well, the other thing that sounds unhealthy, too, is they're offering parents a chance of earning money to send their kid to a certain school. They'll allow them transportation, travel, airline tickets, room and board to come, you know, watch all the games. I mean, it's becoming it's getting out of hand. I just wish.
Is it getting out of hand, or is it just you and I just uncomfortable with this?
I'm uncomfortable with it because I think there's so many other causes for a kid to learn at college. And I think foremost is his education. He should learn education. Okay, that's the foremost thing. That's why we went to school,
right?
Because I couldn't afford to go to some of these universities if I didn't have a scholarship to go.
Same here.
And now that you see these kids go to school, what happens to all the nonprofits? Oh, look at all the nonprofits we could help. People who really need help. Okay, isn't that a better thing personally? I mean, you have a chance to go on and play professional football. You can earn a good living. Okay, only 2% of the people that play are going to play professionally anyway. But look at all the other people that can be helped. Instead of putting that money into a fund like that, put it into some nonprofit entity. Help people that are unfortunate, that they don't have the resources to help themselves.
You know, the thing that I think has spurred this on has been what we have seen with college football over the last several decades is the growth in the revenues that they were getting, and then with that growth in revenues, the NC2A probably never really sought some very viable opportunities to spread some of that money back to the people who were generating it. And then when this opportunity came on, it's like gangbusters, everybody kicking the doors down to get a piece of the pie. So I can understand it from that perspective in that they were, we watched our generation after us, we watched our efforts generate a lot of money for the institutions. And in turn, the institutions didn't shower some of that back on us. So I can understand where a lot of the emotion to get after the dollars come from. But I don't think it's going to be very good systematically for the way we do business, the way we've historically done business in America.
Well, you're hearing it from one of the best that ever played the game. And, he was 20 years with the same team. He had a chance to move anywhere he wanted, but he was loyal to his team. He was loyal to his college at Jackson State. And it says a lot, Jackie. So I'm sure the alumni are very appreciative that somebody like you was able to make a big impact in life and to help a lot of people as you've done. So we encourage our fans back home to give us your comments and what you think we have. So we'll have something to talk about next week when we come back, Jackie. And we really enjoy talking about controversy or the NFL or whatever it is, but we love to have you share your thoughts with us. And if you have any comments, please subscribe and comment at the bottom. So until next week, Jackie, stay on point.